day, everybody. My name is Dr. Francois Tessier. I am the CEO of the Center for Complementary Therapy and Pain Management in Sri Lanka. Welcome to this series of Zoom interviews where you discover the most amazing doctors, therapists, philosophers, artists, shaman, healers, clairvoyant, psychic medium, etc., that are practicing complementary therapies worldwide and that help us to view the world differently. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Mr. Richard Gordon, the founder of Quantum Touch in the United States. So Richard Gordon masters the art of energy healing, right? He is the author of bestsellers book, as well as a founder of the most famous energy healing of the world called Quantum Touch. Quantum Touch is an amazing healing technique that uses universal energy to manage pain and promote wellness. His work is practiced over the world. I think it's over than 50 countries around the planet. And he's practicing this art and these techniques since more than 35 to 37 years or something. And he taught this technique to over 15,000 people. He taught in universities, into foundation, into chiropractic colleges, etc. So he is internationally acclaimed for his work. Richard was a polarity therapist before he created Quantum Touch in the middle of the 80s. After a life-changing event with a renowned healer named Robert Rasmussen, and he developed this powerful technique that he called Quantum Touch. And he first developed the basic techniques, then after he developed more advanced techniques, and over time, he's going even further. Right now, he's developing miraculous technique with that, so he's gonna talk about that today. Right, so Richard, it's very difficult to introduce you. There is so much to say. I'll stop here and I'll tell you welcome and thank you very much to be with us today.
Oh, thank you, Francois. It's such a pleasure to see you again and to talk with you this way.
Thank you. Well, Richard, I will start this interview by a very simple question. How did you discover the power of energy? Because you were a polarity massage therapist before, and which involved a little bit of the chi, right? How did you discover that?
Well, I discovered this because my health was getting worse and worse. And so I wanted to know how to help myself. And I went to a holistic health school where I was introduced to polarity therapy, which was mind-blowingly exciting work. And I could feel the energy very, very clearly. And I saw results that were astounding. So that was so exciting to me. And when I had written my first book that came out in 1978, that dates me quite a bit, that book became a bestseller and it went out around the world. But 3 months before the book came out, I was introduced to Robert Rasmussen, this very powerful healer who had never taught a workshop in his life. He'd been practicing this technique he had developed for over 20 years. And he had come up with it on his own, where they're using breathing and body awareness. There's no belief system, there's no religion, there's no philosophy whatsoever. Breathing and body awareness and love. If love is a religion, I'm in. But anyway, he astounded me because my girlfriend stood up in front of the room. We're all looking at a major scoliosis. She has a big S curve in her back. And he touches the occipital ridge, and in 2 seconds, it just rolls right back into alignment. He touches her hips, and the hips just roll right back into alignment. And then he goes up and down her spine for 7-8 minutes. And then her spine was like 50% straightened out. And I was so amazed. I lost interest in polarity therapy for a while, actually pretty much the rest of my life. And I apprenticed with him and eventually took over in his retirement, radically evolved his work to make it much faster, easier, more powerful, so everybody could pick up on it. And now we have ordinary people with all beliefs, all religions, whatever, finding how to integrate it into what they know. We have practitioners, chiropractors, physical therapists, osteopaths, physicians, you name it. Doesn't matter what their background is, they can integrate it with whatever else they previously knew and get enhanced results.
Right.
So quantum touch is this universal, I call it a technique without a big ego, because you can use it with whatever you know and make what you know better.
Yes, yes. So you were inspired by the work of this fantastic healer, and you brought that technique further. Where did you pick up your inspirations? Because you were having already a background in energy, you understood energy, you felt energy. How did it work? How did you find out?
Well, what happened was the essence of Bob's work. Let's back up for people. What happens is, in order to do healing work, you need to have what they call life force energy, the prana, the chi, the ki. You need this energy, and you need to build the energy up. Now, there's a lot of techniques where they use what I'll call ambient energy, like Reiki or polarity therapy, where you use the energy you happen to have available. Now, if you don't have any energy, you can actually become drained. But if you don't have a lot of energy, you can pump up the energy, which is what we do with quantum touch. We use breathing and body awareness exercises to lift our energy higher and higher and higher. And then through something called resonance and entrainment, the other person matches your vibration. If you entrain to the other person, you can come down and feel drained or tired. And that's a very popular theme in movies, where the healer becomes, they sacrifice themselves to help somebody else. And you see it in a lot of movies, Green Mile or E.T. and so forth, where the healer, or that movie, I was called Michael, but anyway, it's a bunch of movies where the healer gets tired or drained. That doesn't happen with quantum touch. That's Hollywood.
Obviously
what we
not.
do is
Obviously not.
we lift our energy higher and higher and higher and higher, and then let the other person come up to match us. I think of it like, if somebody falls in the well, you can climb in there with them and be twice as loud, or you can throw them a rope and pull them up. So that's what we do, is we lift ourselves up first and then lift the other person up to match us. That's resonance and entrainment of life force energy. Right. So that's the basic concept of it. Mm-hmm. So when I realized what Bob was doing, he was using that breath and body awareness to lift the energy. So I thought, well, how can we enhance this so I have more awareness? Now, when you do this work, a lot of people develop the abilities. Most people have it immediately, but some people have to develop it, where you can actually feel sensations in your body more and more clearly. Yeah. And with practice, it's like a muscle. You get stronger and stronger at developing sensation. But for most people just watching this video, can you feel your finger without touching it?
Yes.
Can you imagine you're breathing into your finger right now? Deep breaths and breathe right into the finger and have more and more awareness in that finger. There's a cat's tail going by. and can you increase the sensation in your finger by breathing into it? And can you feel the fingernail underneath your finger? Can you bring more sensation? So what we do is we practice having full body awareness of sensation.
Consciousness.
And like I said, yes, it's consciousness. And with practice, you can make the sensation stronger and stronger and stronger. And then we move these sensations in waves and patterns using various breathing techniques. And that's the essence of what quantum touch does. It's we're moving this awareness through our bodies in waves and patterns with various breathing methods until we can bring it into our hands, and then we sandwich the part of their body. So when Bob showed me the essence of it, I thought, well, here's what we're actually doing. Let's enhance it. Let's make it stronger. Mm-hmm. And then over the years, new insights arrived, like, oh my God, we can do it this way too. And oh, here's another way that even is more powerful and is faster and is even easier.
Increasing.
So that was what Yeah, which led to the level 2 and so forth.
Well, right. When you saw Robert working, you increased, but you saw him work basically on spine alignment, which is one of your first, I would say, lead in quantum touch. But it
Yes.
goes much
Yes.
further than that. It does much further than just realign the spine and realign the bone. You can even realign the bone inside the skull, right? We can do that, right?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
practitioner of this side.
I have videos where people feel the base of their occipital ridge, and then I just touch them with an object that I meditated on,
Mm,
and then it instantly, and they touch and they go, how'd that happen? And they're shocked because the actual bones in the head move. But we realize that's the tip of the iceberg of what's actually happening during the session, because it's working on all systems, all organs of the body. It can reduce pain. It can bring down inflammation. And that's why we see it helping people with virtually any kind of condition
yeah,
to accelerate their own self-healing process. We recognize very clearly the definition of a healer is someone who was sick and got well. And a
yes,
great healer is someone very sick who got well quickly.
yes,
Because we do not heal anybody else. And anybody who thinks we're healers, it's just a misunderstanding. Because what we're doing is we're holding resonance and vibration to let their body and spiritual intelligence do its own self-healing.
mm,
All healing is ultimately self-healing because the cells have to heal themselves. We don't heal other people's cells. Their cells heal themselves.
yeah. Well, you just mentioned something that I was about to ask. There is an interconnection between the energy level and the cellular level. And I practice that art. I know so much about it, and I have so many cases. How does it work? How does the energy, well, enters and encounter the cell? How can the energy influence the movement of the cell? Maybe you can answer to this one.
Well, I think that's part of the great mystery, is that what we're doing is we're using the body's own mechanism of self-healing.
Right.
The body has, anything that's alive has what we call life force energy to it. Somebody wanted to visit. This is Debbie.
Uh,
Is the body has life force energy. This differentiates something that's living from something that's not living.
yeah.
Now, when the energy is depleted, the self-healing is diminished.
Mm.
And when the energy is high, the self-healing is enhanced.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we can do through those breathing body awareness techniques is to raise our vibration first. If you're impoverished, you have nothing to give. So we give to ourselves first. And as the physician Jerry Pittman wrote, in its elegance, quantum touch first provides healing to the practitioner. Before you give it to another person, you have to fill yourself up before. You need to be filled before you can give to another. It's like the cup has to be filled before you can share it.
You receive before you give.
Yeah, you need to receive before you give. And that's the process we use every single time with quantum touch. In order to give to another person, we first have to have lifted our own energy field.
Hmm. So you can address all sorts of issues. I mean, internal problems, or I mean, articulation, of course, bone alignment, we already said, but we can work on so many other things, such as even ulcers and all sorts of wounds and mental conditions also. You have developed techniques in the level 2 that can help people living with all sorts of mental problem, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, well, all of the quantum touch level 1 and level 2 can address that, but we can do it more elegantly with the level 2 work, where you don't even have to touch the person and you can work more at a distance or multiple people simultaneously. So I'd like to ask you a question.
Right.
What was one of the most astounding healing sessions that you've experienced with this work?
My most astounding healing sessions was with 97 years old women. And I was using love energy because she felt down on the floor. It was winter. She was a weak person, a little bit overweight. And when she felt, couldn't stand up, and the ambulance came late because it's out in the country. And so she got some air. And at this age, you can have a lung problem very easily. So there was an accumulation, a built-up of problem on these women. They brought up at the hospital, and I was called the day after she was hospitalized to see this woman. At that moment, she was having water on the lung, and she was having all of the right side of her body completely wounded. She couldn't move the leg. She has a lot of pain on the hip, the shoulder, and I ran energy. And I ran love energy on this lady. But the most intriguing question is she was not alone in that room. There was a lady next to her, right? 77, something like that. And she was at the hospital since 4 months, having biopsies, scan, all sorts of testing, blood testing, and over and over and over. And the day after, she called the sisters of my friend that was, and she said, what was doing this man yesterday? And they said, well, he was doing energy healing to this grandmother and blah, blah, blah. And she said, I don't know what happened, but the night after this man came, suddenly I felt great. And I saw my doctor and says, well, you can go, and if ever you feel bad again, come back. And I was targeting love energy on this lady. And that, well, of course, the lady improved a lot. I forgot to say that there was a major improvement, not small, a major improvement. Water went out of the lungs suddenly. She could move the leg, and it was a great result. But the more astounding result was on the neighbor. How can you explain that, Richard?
The field of energy is not limited to where you're working, because you're lifting your energy really high, and she was connecting with you while you were doing it, and you were subconsciously or consciously connecting with her, and the energy just goes to where it's needed and does what's needed. It's one of the fundamental principles of the work, is the energy goes where it's needed, it does what's needed, and it is the body and spiritual intelligence doing the healing. And when people are ready, it makes us look like miracle workers.
It is. It's difficult to believe. I couldn't believe that.
I know. And I have seen so many sessions that were really hard for me to believe as well. Yeah. And yet this is, you know, we had people who had taken one of the Quantum Touch workshops, and they met together every few weeks to have a group healing session together.
Right.
And they'd see miracles every time they get together. So they started thinking, well, if we see a miracle every time, then we can't call it a miracle anymore. And they came up with a new word. They call it a normical.
Normal.
Because when miracles become normal, we call them normicals.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've met a lot of them, especially with the last work that you've done. That led you to create the pendant. Can you explain this part? Because that's just astounding. Yeah. It goes beyond.
Okay.
When we think with you, Richard, that the most fantastic thing, we think you're finished with level 2, and then you end up with that. My goodness.
Well, it's still in an evolutionary process. I'm still developing. I'm still working on developing new things all the time. So what happened was, with level 1, we put our hands on people.
Right.
And so then with level 2, I found out that I could meditate in a certain kind of way by sending heart energy
Right.
And the first test I did to see if it really worked was, can I align somebody without touching them?
Right. And it
And
does
then
work.
could I align 100 people? And it does work. And then can I align 100 people simultaneously without touching them? And that worked too.
Yeah.
And that became the basis of what we call level 2. So it was a few years ago, and I was sitting in a coffee shop, and I like to try stupid things. And I had a really dumb idea. And I was looking at, I had played golf in the morning, and I had a wooden golf tee in my pocket.
Right.
And I thought, I wonder what would happen if I meditate on the golf tee the same way I meditate on the occipital bones
Right.
to get them to move. So I put that information into the golf tee, and when I handed the golf tee to somebody, it instantly aligned the occipital bones.
Click.
And I actually meditate on the bone behind the nose and eyes called the sphenoid that causes the hips to move and the occiput. So it instantly aligned hips and cranial bones. So then I handed it to I handed it to 10 more people, and it immediately aligned them too. And then I started trying other experiments, like what happens if I meditate on plastic or rubber or paper or pebbles and glass, and every material that I tried all worked. That once I had done about 7 or 8 experiments, I thought, wow, I'm on an adventure. I better keep a notebook. So I wrote down all the experiments that I had done and kept a journal of them all. And I ended up with about 57 experiments that became the basis for my latest book, The Secret Nature of Matter, where I then started seeing anomalies, like why did the table become charged if an object was on the table?
Right.
Was it automatically bleeding from one object to another, or was it me who joined them together? And by doing different experiments, I was able to prove to myself, and other people have repeated these experiments, that it was us who joined the objects together. It wasn't that it happened on its own. So I then, once I realized that objects could be joined together consciously, and I could explain the experiments, but they're a lot of fun, is that I could join objects together that I could put love and energy into and create what's now known as the quantum touch pendant.
Yes, which is a marvelous device.
So they're gold or silver, and it's an amazing device. And this is now holding the energy and intentions of about 6,000 people around the world. And people are not only putting their healing into it, but they're putting their special abilities, gifts, talents, their love, their peak experiences. And I'm working on new ways of accessing the gifts in these pendants. So that's another one of the things that's coming through now, is a method of doing that. And we're working out how we can get this.
Are you going to publish something about that?
This is going to be something that probably in the next 3 or 4 months, maybe 6 months, I'll have together, and I'll have a device that you hold in your hand. Yeah, it'll be a device, and then I'll show people how to use it. But it's astounding. But that's for later. How to get the energy from these pendants in a really dramatic way that just shifts your whole energy field.
Well, so already the pendant alone, without any other device, is already just astounding. So I look forward.
The pendant is amazing, and I recently sent a couple pendants to Dr. Norm Shealy, who was one of the people who tested quantum touch on his most difficult chronic pain patients, people with 20 and 30 years of constant pain who had never been helped by any traditional or alternative method. And he wanted to make the test so rigorous, he couldn't believe anything but the outcome. And every one of the people had between a 30 and 70% reduction of pain from a single session. But what impressed him much more was the pain result was long lasting for these people. It wasn't like, it only lasted for 20 minutes. It was a week later and they were still experiencing great benefit. Well, I recently sent him some pendants in my book, and he's been testing it with EEG and seeing that there is a result of holding the pendants near somebody's head with EEG.
Of course. So, but you have
And
scientific proof right now.
yeah, we're getting the proof. I mean, he hasn't like nailed it like absolute proof, but his preliminary results are impressive. So I wouldn't want to say he's proven it, but he's getting results that are impressive to him. And now he's curious about self-created health. So,
Yeah.
and by the way, he was the founding president of the American Holistic Medical Association. And he started as a neurosurgeon and got interested in alternative methods of healing. And he wrote the forward to my touch as well.
Right.
The first 10 colors. And okay, I can hear you. Okay, you're back again.
You know that we were stuck for a few seconds. The joy of we are seeing, you know, in the 70s and in the 80s, we were talking about, and in the 90s, we were talking about alternative medicines. And today,
yes,
we are talking about complementary medicine. And I believe that quantum touch is absolutely into this wave, isn't it? You are not
absolutely
a doctor, right?
What happened is this hits a wall. And I want to talk about the wall for a second. The wall is the belief system of the culture. Just like priests 400 years ago were unwilling to accept the idea of optics because it showed that the earth went around the sun by looking at the phases of Venus. The priests 400 years ago were vehemently opposed to the idea that a telescope could give us information about the universe.
Right.
Well, similarly, I went to the University of Arizona a few months ago, and I got to present my discoveries to a group of scientists. And what I told them my history and how I went from this stage to this stage to this stage. And now I found out that objects can hold energy and information. And they said, well, show us. Okay, sure. So I had people measuring hips and occiput, and multiple people did the measurements, and we did it maybe 7 or 8 times until they just said, all right, well, it's clearly happening.
Yeah.
They saw it enough times with enough people measuring. They said, yep, it's working every time. This is true. And one of the scientists said, I would love to study this, and I have new ultrasound equipment, and I can do measurements without being invasive, and this would be so exciting for me to research and publish this. But I know if I do, I'll never get tenure at the university. And then another one said, oh, I have the latest MRI equipment, and I could see the bones clearly without being invasive in the body, and we can measure this. And a third one said, oh, I have this other equipment that measures micromovements. And they said, but this is academic suicide. And then the head professor talked about it and said, unfortunately, you're all right, because there is no university in the United States, Canada, or Europe that's accredited, as far as he knows, that would be willing to explore my discoveries. Because the same reason that the priests were afraid to explore optics and telescopes 400 years ago, it broke the model of reality.
Yeah.
So what we have now is we have a division between religion, which is information you get from a book, and science, which is information we get from observation. And then I'll put a third category I'll call spirituality, which is direct experience of our connection to source.
Right.
Which doesn't need a book. It's about love and direct experience of love. And we use that direct experience of love with the breathing and body awareness. And you say you channel love. That's exactly how we work. Okay. We learn how to channel the love to get results. They can see the results, but they're afraid. They're afraid of what their peers will say. They're afraid to lose their reputation, their grant money, and their career.
Yeah.
All those years of college, education to build a career that will be demolished if they step out of line and see what's actually true.
Yeah.
And I love showing the scientists. It's the most fun for me ever to show them something they know can't be true, and then to realize, oh, they weren't discriminating against me. They were just afraid.
Yeah.
They were
Well,
afraid to see what was there.
hopefully it doesn't stop you to do your research.
Oh no, I'm still doing my research, but I realized why this doesn't go mainstream, because of fear.
Hmm.
But ordinary people who don't have that fear can say, well, let me help my grandma. Let me help my children. Let me help my friends and my loved ones.
Yeah.
Give me these basic human skills that I can take with me to help everybody in my life. They're available to you now. You can learn quantum touch. You can get a pendant. You can go ahead, take level 1, level 2, and then we can go even further with what I call self-created health.
Yeah.
Because when the energy fails and it isn't enough for the job, sometimes there's certain emotional things we need to learn. We need to heal the emotional wounds that are being expressed as pain in our body. And by doing so, not only do symptoms disappear, but people can feel incredibly grateful for having had the condition.
Yeah.
And that's what I call self-created health.
The story of that, when you discovered this one, it was quite interesting because, again, it started with your own experience, right? I think you were having flu or something.
Yeah, I woke up one morning in 1980 with severe flu symptoms, a deep gurgling chest cough, high fever, terrible sore throat, bones aching, congested, and I felt as bad as I knew how to feel. And I crawled out of bed and I wrapped myself in a blanket on a cold morning. And I thought, well, maybe I should go into the kitchen and get some hot lemon water. That was my first thought. My second thought was I had recently attended a seminar where the spiritual teacher had been talking about how suppressed anger primarily expresses itself as health conditions. And I thought, well, what am I upset about? In fact, I was emotionally numb and I couldn't find any emotion. So I looked at my childhood and I looked everywhere and I couldn't find anything that caused me to feel any emotion at all. And then after about 8 or 10 minutes of looking, all of a sudden, I remembered that exactly 3 days prior, a friend of mine had said something that I felt was very humiliating, made fun of me in front of a bunch of friends. And I pretended nothing was said so as to make it go way faster. Okay, I'm just not going to acknowledge this. It's going to go way faster. And I'm like, the conversation shifted and I let it go. But that brought up all my emotions. And I suddenly felt this tremendous amount of hurt and anger. I let myself cry a little bit. I let myself just vent my anger. And I felt a little better. So I got up, got dressed, took a shower, and I drove downtown Santa Cruz, where I lived at the time, had a cup of coffee, sitting in the sun. And I looked into my coffee cup and suddenly realized, oh my God, I was sick this morning and all the symptoms were completely gone. That led me to the exploration. And within a year, I had discovered all the questions for helping to discover emotional causes, which is a very simple interrogative process of just asking a person a bunch of questions about their condition, writing everything they say down verbatim, and then feeding that information back as a question. And they will tell you what the answer is. And I do not want to know their story.
No.
It doesn't help me. It's just time consuming. They know their story and that's what matters.
Yeah.
But it saves so much time by not knowing their story. But when they put it together, and they release those core emotions, and not only do the symptoms spontaneously disappear, but people can feel unfathomably grateful that they had had the condition because it showed them how they had stopped loving. And then in retrospect, I realized that the body has the ability to be sick, not as a dysfunction, but it's a communication from your own higher consciousness.
Right.
And when you realize that, and you let that in after 100 experiences or 1,000 experiences with this work, you realize that we're living in a spiritual reality and that nothing is a coincidence, that everything is the most beautifully orchestrated synchronicity of spiritual miracles. And then only in retrospect, and I say this very strongly, only in retrospect, that we realize that the horrendous condition was a dark miracle.
Oh, what do you mean by dark?
It's
What do you mean?
a dark miracle is something horrible that's happening to you that you don't realize is a miracle at the time.
Ah,
It's only a miracle when you get to the other side. It's awful. It's like, okay, you fell, you broke your hip. There's nothing miraculous or wonderful about it. It's just miserable. However, if you can get to the other side of it, where you realize, oh my God, I had stopped loving my father or my mother or whatever there was, my spouse, whatever it was. And to get back to that love again was so much more valuable than the pain was terrible and tragic, that you realize that there was a gift in the suffering.
right.
And you can't tell a person this.
No,
This is
no,
the
no.
worst thing.
No,
You
no.
can't say this.
No.
It's-
I have so much, I mean, I see a lot of patients, and never I would say that.
No, you would never say that because it's the most terrible thing you could say. And yet, in retrospect, when they're on the other side, they'll say, I'm so grateful that I had the condition because it showed me how I had stopped loving. And getting back to the love was much more valuable than the condition was ever painful or causing suffering.
Oh,
Therefore, it became a miracle that I had had the condition, but it's what I call a dark miracle.
that's
And you know this to be true because we've seen this theme in so many movies, and people say, if it wasn't for that tragedy I had as a child, I would never have become the person I am today.
absolutely.
If it wasn't for the suffering that I encountered early on, I would never have overcome and become. And so in our own lives, we've heard the story every single time that I had to overcome the adversity to become more, except that it isn't a coincidence. The adversity wasn't random. It actually was perfectly designed. And when you understand this very deeply, you realize we are swimming in a synchronicity of miracles every single moment, but we can't see it because we're so deeply entrenched in the suffering and the pain and don't have the insight, wisdom, or perspective to see that all these things were actually miracles in the making.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. Dark miracle, it resonates a lot in my own personal life, but I guess that most of the people in our audience will also relate to that also, right?
Yes, exactly.
One thing that I love from Quantum Touch is the encouragement to experimenting. And I would like to share one with you because this one
Please.
was astounding. One time I decided to do nothing for a patient because it was a very difficult patient with a strong belief system and also
Right.
right? He used to climb, he used to make escalation, and his body was a territory for pain. And he did almost everything he could, and he was having specific pain in a specific area, and nobody could follow the track of what was this pain. Was it a nerve? Was it a muscle? Nothing was found. So he came to see me, believing that I could not help him.
Yes.
I have no problem with that. At least you came to see me, and the least we can have is nothing. So I decided to sit. I said, close your eyes. I didn't want him to see me because you would believe that I was a scam. And I did not. However, No movement, nothing, you know, no.
Right.
But I went into the area and I traveled into the body and I instructed to the pain to go away for
Yes.
60 minutes. He told me
Yeah.
where he was having the pain, right?
Right. Right.
And sometimes he was moving like that and expressing some
Yes.
voicing, and it worked. I mean,
Yes.
it damn worked. At the end, the boy said, "What did you do?" I said, "Well, energy healing." Because when you start to explain them, it's not good. Nah?
No. No.
So,
The thing is that what you did was you're using level 2.
yeah.
You're bringing your love, you're bringing your consciousness inside their body. You're probably continuing to do some of the breathing and holding the vibration.
Yeah.
And it looks like nothing on the outside, but you're working the whole time. You're moving and consciously bringing awareness into their body. So you're raising the vibrational field of their body. I think
Right.
the first time I did level 2, I worked on a man who was a fire dancer.
Oh.
And he had picked up a friend incorrectly, just kind of lifted her up, and he sprained a rib so badly he couldn't even breathe comfortably. He just couldn't even take a deep breath, and he couldn't move, and he couldn't do fire dancing. So I said to him, we were sitting in a coffee shop. I often do a lot of healing sessions in coffee shops.
Yeah, you like to do that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's just my game I play. And so I said, all right, what I'm going to ask you to do is to sit perfectly still and just focus on the inside of your body. And I'm just going to meditate. And I meditated for about 5 minutes on the area of the rib. And what I did was I emptied out really deeply, where I got into a very deep meditation, ran the energy, and then let it all go. Sort of what we call core transformation work, where just empty out and just let the energy expand. And in doing so, 5 minutes later, he goes, oh my God, there's no rib pain whatsoever. And that was one of my first, one of my first level 2 experiences was, holy smokes, you can actually work without touching people or apparently doing anything.
Right. Without doing nothing. And that's
Yeah.
just astounding. And I mean, it's very hard to believe because you did nothing. And I mean, sometimes that's a case that was, I mean, that's an accident, but I have worked a lot on elderly people, so that's chronic pain. I'm talking about people suffering from pain for years,
right.
And it's finished. So I don't know what happens on the molecular aspect. I wish I had an X-ray in front of me, because I don't like to believe, in miracle, but I just have to see that it happens. It's just
and it happens so often.
Yeah.
We have to believe the outcome.
Yeah.
We don't understand the process.
No.
We don't understand the process of these things, but we do see the outcome. Yeah. And that's the important thing.
Have you tried that on object? Have you?
Yeah.
You did, huh?
Yeah, for instance. Oh, yeah. So, for instance, I bought this emerald for about $25 because it was just this ugly stone. And then I ran energy into it for a few years, right. And now it's become a gem. And then over here, let's see, do I have it handy? Yeah, this was, when I first met Jennifer, I had this Tourmaline Crystal.
Wow.
And I ran energy into, let's see if I can bring this up here.
It's a black tourmaline, eh?
Yeah, well, it was a dark green tourmaline, but I thought it was black when I got it.
It's a green tourmaline.
It's actually a green tourmaline. And I ran energy into it, and the whole thing became lit up from the inside. And so the whole thing is a big gem now that it wasn't a gem before. In fact, I didn't even know it was green. It was just black before. Yeah. And then the color came into it, and And so you can actually work on objects and change the structure. And so when I first started doing this, I was taking a 10-power loop every day and going into the sun, and I'd start to see areas where it started to sparkle a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then every day it would sparkle more.
Yeah.
And then it became a little bit glassy. And then it would change again and start becoming translucent. And I would take it out every day and just be amazed because I could actually watch it, a stone changing before my eyes.
I can understand that. Yeah.
Objects can hold energy, and then you can join the objects together. So this pendant is maybe, and I don't know if this is true, but it may be the first entangled talisman in the world.
Yeah.
In other words,
you
thousands of
a
people.
Talisman, huh? It's a very powerful word. Yeah. Talisman is powerful, right?
Yeah, it's a talisman of sorts, but it's just a pendant. But it's joined together, and it's a power object.
Yeah, of course.
But now, every time a new person gets their pendant, the first thing in the instructions is go into the deepest level of how you love or adore, and hold it in your hands, and infuse it with your deepest love. So we use the word love, which is how we express caring, compassion, understanding, nurturing, protection, and many other qualities. We've lumped all those together in one word, but some people love in one way and others are very different in the way they love. But now this is holding the vibration of 6,000 people loving.
Yeah.
And so then the question is, how do we extract this? And that's another project I'm working on, as I mentioned before.
Give us an insight. We're going to conclude about that. Don't give me the full thing, but give me some leads of what.
Well, okay. So the first thing is the only way the pendant operates is with intention.
Right.
So I was surprised because I could hand people the pendant to look at it, and it did not cause alignment. But if I touch somebody with the intention of alignment, it works. Even when I was at the university and I handed my pendant to the grad students there, and I said, all right, touch him with the intention of causing the alignment, and they could, and it did. And so what we want to do is we want to use our intention to access the gifts. So that's the first step. But there's more after that, but that's how we use it to get the gift. So if you want a quality that you're not experiencing, say, I want more patience, and you can just kind of tap yourself or anywhere, say, oh, what's the energy and essence of greater patience? And you can do that with the pendant and just say, oh, I want to be more at peace with myself, or whatever you want, you can,
whatever it is,
whatever the gift is, because somebody put that into there.
Right.
Somebody's put this in. I met an esteemed Buddhist monk, elderly gentleman, and I said, I would like you to infuse deep inner peace into the pendant. So he stood there for 3 or 4 minutes and he's smiling and just putting deep inner peace. There was another man who considered himself a tantric priest.
Right.
And I said, I want you to put sexual ecstasy in the pendant. He's kind of shaking his body and he's putting energy in. And so we don't even know what's inside these things. There's so much in here. And people can explore these things, and it's just going to become more over the years. They're going to get stronger and better. So like an app on your phone that just gets better every year because they keep adding to it. These become better all the time.
And so you're building a device to extract it without the intention. Is that what you say?
Well, you always have to use intention to extract it, but I'm going to have a way of extracting it more efficiently.
Right.
Also, we have wooden pendants.
Yes.
And beads. And beads that were made in Costa Rica, and ones with beautiful gemstones that are necklaces. And every one of the beads is charged like the pendant. So if people are interested in other kinds of jewelry, we even have, I think I have one here. Yeah, we even have smaller solid silver pendants
Oh, yeah,
that
really? Huh?
people can access if they're interested. So they're all on our website at
Yes,
quantumtouch.com if
which
people
will,
want to explore
yeah,
that,
you put the,
along with instructors and practitioners and
yeah,
books and the rest of it.
yes, of course. Well, Richard, I could go on and on and on and on and on forever because I am a believer and a user. I mean,
Yes, you
I
are.
don't like the word believer. I don't like that because it's not a,
Well, you've become a believer because you've used it enough to see that it works.
yes.
You didn't start as a believer, you started as a skeptic,
Yeah.
and then you discovered, well, I guess this works, and so try it again. And after hundreds of experiences, you say, okay, now I believe it.
Yes, yes, yes. And some of them were astounding. Some of them were just beyond my mind. I'd like to finish one of them, and
Please.
you will be. I were in the western part of Canada, near Calgary, and this is where the Rocky Mountains starts. And we were having a day off, right? And we decided to go from Calgary to Jasper. So Jasper, you have to cross 4 hours of high mountains to go to this beautiful city. And it was like in the fall season or something, like in November, right? And we were having a driver, and we went to Jasper, enjoyed fantastic city, and at 6 p.m. decided to come back in Banff. Actually, it's not exactly Calgary, it's Banff, the center there. Well, 1 hour after the vehicle left Jasper, the driver says, "Oh, I have no more gas. What will I do?" I said to myself, oh my God, there is no more gas. And there is only one gas station, which is closed during the night because it's a remote area. You are in the mountains. It's not like in the normal cities, right? I said, oh my God. So I just sat inside the seat. I was behind, and I mimicked that I was sleeping because I didn't want to stay stuck all night there because it's like heck scary, you know. There is the rock.
Yeah.
I didn't want to stay there, so I meditate on the fuel needle, and I saw that the needle will stay there, and I was seeing the vehicle moving on and moving on, and we arrived, of course, at the station, and obviously it was closed. The driver says, damn, it's closed. What will we do? We cannot go back. We have to move on. And I requested that we stopped exactly at the gas station in Banff, and the engine would not stop before. And every 10 minutes, the driver said, wow, I can't believe we still move on. My God, what's going on, etc. For hours. Like, it's a long way. And the vehicle literally stopped when we arrived exactly well aligned at the gas station. At the pump, I could not be, I said nothing, because, you know, people are going to think you're crazy.
Yes.
But the vehicle ran. Can you believe that? It's just unbelievable.
I will tell you, I'll finish this with one more story.
Yeah.
And this story came from Bob Rasmussen, my teacher. He told the exact same story that you just told me.
Right.
That his car had no gas and he was able to drive another 100 miles with no gas in the tank.
Yeah.
And he said he just kept meditating, that, you know, giving the energy to the system. And we do hear these kinds of stories from time to time about people recharging batteries. We've had about 100 people tell us these stories about recharging dead batteries and whatnot. And I always put them off to the side, but the more times I hear them, the more open I am to these realities. And I just finished by saying we don't know the limits of what's possible. And because many people make strong assumptions that none of these things that we talked about today are possible, I would suggest be open-minded that maybe there are possibilities we haven't considered yet. That's all.
Yeah, well,
and be open to exploring something, be open to the mystery, because it's so much fun to learn something that you didn't even think was possible. And then when you find out you can do it, it's a real delight. And not to feel helpless, because there's something you can do to help the people that you love in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
There's something really important to learn here.
Yeah.
So I encourage everybody to study this if you get the opportunity to do
Of
so.
course, the link will be here in the because that's a must. That's
and you're teaching also. So, and you're also a teacher.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and sometimes I teach to children on the spot. I mean, there was a small.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah, my God, the fun. I saw that she could heal the father. The father was in a coffee shop. I'm like you. I'm going to coffee shop, and the father was having a severe acute pain of the wrist, and he said, "Can you do that? Can you do something for me?" And I said, "You can." And I instruct her how to breathe. She did the sandwich, and it worked. 10 minutes after, the father was having no more pain. Fantastic, eh?
It's so amazing. And you wonder, why is this not taught in every school?
Yeah.
Why is this not studied at every university?
Yeah.
Why is this not being utilized in every hospital and medical center in the world? We have something that's so fundamental to change the world.
Yeah.
And yet we have to do it one step at a time.
Yeah.
Because there's so much resistance to something that cannot be weighed, measured, put into a formula. It's post-materialist science.
Yeah.
And the world hasn't accepted the idea that these things could exist. So they say it isn't true because it can't exist, not what do we see.
Yes, but it does exist. Both of us know.
Yes.
Other instructors also do know. Richard.
And thousands of people have studied it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a real joy.
Yes.
Well, what a pleasure.
Give my regards to Jennifer. And
I shall.
I send love to you. Thank you for this wonderful.
Thank you so much.
And
it's been a delight. And
I'll send you the link when it's going to be ready, right?
Okay, we look forward to it. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Okay, goodbye. Bye-bye.